Hi everybody, welcome to Leon's Chainsaw Parts and Repair. I was hoping I was going to be posting a final test run video of this Super 1130G for Steven tonight, but that apparently is not what's destined to be. I've test run it several times now, and from what I can tell, the automatic oiler's not working. Well, let me rephrase that. It is not working. These things were designed to turn a big bar. They were rated up to a 60-inch, being a gear drive, so they put out a lot of oil when they're working. So the manual oiler that was missing, once I got all that stuff back in, it was fine. It's picking up and it'll put out a big squirt, but why would a guy have an auto oiler saw if you can't take advantage of it? So we're going to see if we can figure out what's wrong with the automatic oil pump. I can't imagine that being it's an oil bath pump that there can't be that much wrong. But this is a good opportunity for all you guys who have never looked inside of one of these gear drives from, I would say, the early to mid 60s, whenever the XP 1100 I think was the first in the series that was a gear drive before they went to the 1130. This is what it looks like on the inside. You've got your standard clutch that's got oil bath clutch shoes. So when the engine turns, you can see the clutch drum is turning one gear, which turns another. They're really, really simple. These have multiple gear ratios that were offered. I don't think that this is a 357:1, but it could be. I'd have to go back and look. There's another post right down here for a smaller gear. I think this is the 2:1. But again, I don't remember, and I'm not that familiar with these. I don't work on them that often. But they're pretty basic. The oil pump is driven under here. So let's see if we can get this larger gear off. It's held on by a retaining ring here, and that should be it. Like I say, since this is bathed in oil, we shouldn't have a huge amount of trouble getting these parts off. I say that now. Let's see how many times I have to edit swearing out of the video of the final product. These snap ring pliers are a joke. I should really invest in a better pair. Bought these from Harbor Freight back when I didn't use snap ring pliers hardly at all. And on something like this, they're just not very adequate. Okay, snap ring off. Crisis averted. As I thought, this gear's going to slide right off. I try to keep it from getting covered in any crap. The last thing you want in your gear case is a bunch of debris of any type floating around. You want just oil, and not whatever that is. One thing I'll say is the inside of this one doesn't look all jacked up. I was guessing that the saw was fairly low hours, and so far I haven't seen anything that makes me deviate from that. Oh, folks, I already know why this oil pump's not working. Do I dare mess with you guys? I don't know if I can get that to zoom in. Have you see it? I'm going to try. Boom, right there. Focus. Alright. I still have to pull it out. But before I do, you got your 3 screws here that are holding it together. It's driven off of a gear that's built into this shaft. Sorry, I know my damn hand's in the way. There's a gear that serves as a worm gear down here. You've got your plunger in here. That screw, see how that's all backed off and loose? Ain't supposed to be like that. That's supposed to sit down, and that's what guides your plunger up and down through the cut that's on it, on the plunger itself. So this thing not being screwed down means that that plunger is just turning in a circle. And I know you probably saw nothing but my damn knuckle there, but that screw right at the top of the screen right there. So I'm gonna go ahead and get this off and get that fixed. Oh wow, those are tight. At least they didn't back off. Oh man. Back this back off so you guys can actually see what the heck's going on up to a point. This handlebar is almost too much in the way. Not quite, but almost. That one's loose. Come on. So close. Alright. Fish those screws out. Maybe. Okay. And now, this pump actually should come right out. Bingo. Okay. So now, let me grab another paper towel here so I don't make a huge mess any more than I already am gonna. Now, you guys can see what I'm talking about. That screw should be fully seated. Now, this plunger can move back and forth, and it's supposed to. So we're going to seat this down lightly. And that went into place. And now we're going to seat it really well. So, little note, you can test these oil pumps by spinning it over by hand. All of Homelite's pumps on these style saws, the Super XL, the 925, the 100 series, you know, the 123s, they all use this worm gear style pump. Where the hell's my oil can? So you can test those by spinning them over by hand. If you can't spin this by hand, it's too tight. I may have shown a video on this before, I may not have. This end cap here is a bushing. The pump is obviously hardened steel, especially that worm gear, that whole shaft has got to be hardened so it doesn't tear up. This is a softer bushing. The dissimilarity in metal, I think this is bronze, these things can seize up. Even brand new, out of the box, old stock oil pumps, I make it a habit of taking these screws out, pulling that cover off, and lubing this whole mess up. It should spin easily. I'm putting no effort into that. These two O-rings are your ports. And it doesn't matter which direction you spin it, it's going to pump in either direction. That's one nice thing about these. But just put some oil on either one and roll your pump over. See how that's sucked in? Or it's blowing out? Go in reverse. All of a sudden it goes away. And now we got oil bubbling up out here. So now she's working the way she should. So to put it back together, you just want to clock it in the same position. And on something like this, it's got a little hub it sits down on. You want to make sure to start all of your screws before you tighten any single one down all the way. Man, I'm going to smell like 90 weight for the next 3 days. Stuff is impossible to get the stink out of you. I'm going to run these down just using this baby screwdriver as much as possible so that I don't get them too tight. I also want to test fit that gear over the top just to make sure everything's aligned. There's really no way it can get out of alignment, but at the same time, who wants to do something multiple times if they don't have to? I, for one, do not. Okay. Okay. Everything looks pretty good there. Now it looks like it would be possible to technically assemble this backwards. But look at how so much of the gear is visible there. It'd only be driving on about half of what's there. So be careful. It's got a kind of a concave surface to it. And that's what you want it to look like. That index is almost level. It's only off by a smidge. And the snap ring is just right there. So we know we're right. I'm not sure you could get the snap ring on in the other direction. But it would probably be helpful to finish tightening these screws down. What do you think, guys? My guess is Steven doesn't want to have that damn oil pump vibrate loose any more than I would. Okay. That's honestly the first time I've seen a cap like that backed off on one of these oilers. Not too common, thankfully. Alright. Well, the nice thing about snap rings is they almost always, I'm not going to say always because then it'll prove me wrong, but they almost always go back on a hell of a lot easier than they came off. Yeah, that was easy. Okay, so I was very fortunate pulling this thing apart. I did not tear the gasket at all. There's aftermarket gaskets that are out there. They're better than nothing. That's about all I'm going to say for them. I used one on my XP1130G. That's the one you guys have seen at the Raising Hell with the Neighbors get-together with the 5-foot bar. I used one of those aftermarket gaskets on it, and guess what? It leaks. It's not super fast, but it's annoying. I don't like it. If I couldn't get access to a gasket at this point, I'll be honest with you guys, I would eliminate it entirely, the gasket, and go to MotoSeal. I honestly think it would do better. So, I suppose, I haven't tried it, but I suppose you could go with a gasket sealer and coat either side of the aftermarket gasket and maybe get better performance out of it. I'm not sure. I haven't been enticed to go down that road. So that slipped right into place. That gear post has a slot right here on the back side of this cover that it's going to slip into. And that'll give you a little bit of pivot. So remember that when you're trying to break the gasket loose, don't start wailing on it thinking it's going to go from side to side. At best, it'll pivot in the back here, on that post. So, I have never seen a tightening sequence for these bolts. If Homelite had one, I don't know what it is. So I like to use a little bit of logic. It's not a head gasket, so it's not like there's compression on it. Once you get them all lined out, I don't think it matters where you start and where you finish, as long as you go evenly and go for a couple passes. These parts are hard as hell to find as it is. You don't want to break something. So I'm going to work my way towards the front of the saw. And I'm trying not to get any clicks out of this rattle. I'm not always successful, but we're getting about the same tightness. Now that one I can't reach. That's going to have to be done with a screwdriver. So I'll go just a smidge over finger tight. Alright, now I'm going to go back and torque them. Okay, we're going to assume that that is good, and we'll start giving it the leak test. Get a little more bar oil back in this bad boy. I don't know how far along we are. It feels like we had to have been on this for at least a good 15 to 20 minutes. Not counting the couple minutes that I turned the camera off while I fought with that snap ring. That's enough. I don't want to fill it up too much because I will be shipping this back soon. Hopefully very soon. We got so many saws coming in for repair right now, it's not funny. So I'm gonna need the space. Like yesterday. Alright, let me go grab some gear oil and I'll show you guys the procedure for checking and filling the oil level on one of these gear drives. So these just need 90 weight. What I've got left from my service on my diesel is some AMSOIL 7590. It'll be fine. That's synthetic oil. That's some good stuff. I know I've babbled about the AMSOIL Sabre, but all of their products are good. Okay, so you've got your oil, chain oiler down here. That's still labeled. That's an easy one. It's got the oil cap. You got this little plug right here. And you got this big one out here. That's your filler. So we're going to go ahead and pop that off. Shouldn't be overly tight, but it's going to be tight. So you pop that bad boy off, and then you want to get this plug out. There's nothing remotely scientific about this. We are going to put gear oil in the top until it comes out the bottom. It is that simple. Make sure this is backed off all the way. There we go. Some of the really old ones had, not these, but the old 50s gear drives, you remember, had a sight glass down here. Well, for whatever reason, that went away. Make sure you guys can see this. And I'm going to aim it at the bench so that it doesn't end up running down my leg. Now this is not much. I think it's about half a pint that this takes. So I'm not going to get carried away here, especially with this long funnel. I don't want to piss a bunch of this out on the workbench. But at the same time, you guys don't want to see 5 minutes of me filling this thing. Oh, there she is. Okay. So if you were concerned about the oil level, you'd pop this plug, and if a little bit drained out, you'd be fine. If you got nothing, I'd take a closer look. Okay. Drain off, get this tight. can guarantee you with that ANSOIL in there, those parts are going to be well protected. So let's cap this off. Alright. Put this away because the last thing I want to do is smell a bunch of stank gear oil, even brand new, spilled all over the garage floor. That would not be good. And who knows, I may be smelling that soon anyway. It looked like that container had a small puncture in the bottom, so lucky me. Alright, that's going to have to get hosed off. I'll have to let it finish draining off the bottom so I can check that gasket for leaks. But what do you say I set this camera back and we see if that oil pump takes a prime? I know it will. There's no question in my mind what the problem was there. Alright. Already had this running, so it shouldn't take much. That's what I wanted to see. Alright, Steven, I think we have reached the point of this being done. I'll get the invoice worked up, get this thing drained of fuel, and we'll get your saw heading back to you.